Okay, so shake it up, shake out the morningness. Good morning, everyone, by the way. Good morning. Sundays are probably my new favorite thing to do, and it's because every Sunday we do these engineering talk streams, inspired by, I won't lie, inspired by a couple different people I saw on stream, twitching it, doing things like that, talking about it from experience. And they're just good, man. I think they're just a good time to really talk about certain aspects of engineering, get people's opinions, see it from different perspectives, see what people are struggling with, see what people are succeeding in, and kind of go from there and build a conversation. And then we can see that, if it's a useful conversation, we can keep the notes, share them, and if something that we're not really talking about, we can disregard it. Today's topic: top programming languages in 2022. So I made a YouTube video about this. Obviously, this is what inspired this conversation here today. And this is also actually a topic that we covered previously on stream. When I first kind of came back, we were talking about this trend graph about programming language, and we're going to use this as the cusp, and as the crux, and as the backbone to our conversation here today. So we have this trend graph, right? And we talked about this earlier. This trend graph is just more so about technologies, but we did focus on the programming languages, right? And we have a couple of ones talked about here, and we use the Stack Overflow survey to discuss where we got this data from. And this isn't just my opinion, this is from the Stack Overflow survey. So obviously the most loved: Rust, Python, and TypeScript. Now the trend graph is going to be a little different than what we want to talk about here in terms of what the top programming language is. The trend graph is more so from a business perspective, if you will. This trend graph looks at things as, because there's so many different technology and programming languages, and because the technology space changes so rapidly, this trend graph helps us kind of mesh the two thoughts and two worlds together. I thought you would have recommended Golang in your YouTube video. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Golang is a incredible language, and I think everyone should learn Golang. But I think Golang is the perfect intermediate language, and I'm going to get into what that means in just a second here. But for a beginner, someone kind of going into the industry, or catering to one of those three groups of people I mentioned earlier: the people who want to make a lot of money, the people who just want to build things, or the people who want to pick up on the latest trends and latest boom technology, Go doesn't really fit into one of those categories more than the ones I mentioned. But Golang is, in my opinion, Golang is the best programming language right now, for anyone at any level. It's like the jack of all. The too long didn't read it. I think Python is one of the best languages to start as a new person or beginner. I think it's a really strong language to take that first step into a programming journey if you come from a different background, right? I know a lot of people are self-taught. I know a lot of people come from different undergraduate degrees. Some people don't even go to school. And, looking at a programming language seems kind of daunting. There's a lot of things going on, especially at high, more advanced programming language. So what Python does is a great way to introduce programming concepts. Most have been learning C, C++, and Python, but that's because I'm mostly focused on embedded development. Yep, exactly. One of my good friends who works at Tesla, he's actually an embedded engineer, and he uses like this C languages and Python heavily. So again, take this trend graph with a grain of salt, but it's a lot of different cases, like Tesla, kind of emerging field, booming here. Tesla is still obviously using C++. So many different companies are using, Java, C, PHP. I just think as a new person, if you're younger and want to kind of go to a different company or pick up something that's on, more of a uptrend, then I recommend the languages up here from the earlier adopters. I definitely think there's no wrong choice in learning what programming language you choose. There's no right choice either, right? I think the choice of programming languages strictly comes to where you are in your kind of career, what you want to do, and what, I guess there's also the concept of how much you want to get paid, because I will say certain programming languages and certain criteria give you a certain set of skills that get different amounts of paid, that get you paid different amounts. If you missed it, last Sunday we talked about the best how to get into a FANG company, how to prepare for a FANG company. Check those notes out in the Discord and check the VOD out. The first thing is top programming languages for who? Okay, very important. You can't just you can't recommend something without knowing who you're recommending that to. And like I said earlier, there's different people with different skills in different levels of their career. So something that I recommend for a beginner is gonna be totally wrong for a person who's more senior or more veteran in the space. So I'm gonna cater this to beginners, obviously. Someone who's fairly new, right? And so I guess what's a beginner? We can also talk about this. Never touched programming. Say less than a year of work experience in the field. Okay. We can also say this is someone in school studying programming. What's up, pizza? How are you, man? Okay. Beginners also follow a lot of things that they see on the internet at face value, like Medium articles, Stack Overflow, Udemy courses. They take that as their source of truth, but really that's just a beginning guiding rail for them to start to branch out and do their own thing. And then the other groups of categories that we're going to cater this video to are, the first group are people who want to get paid. Now, I've said this so many times on my stream. If you're a programmer, you're making so much money, it's stupid. Okay, the people who complain about making money in programming are like, I don't understand that, right? It's just like greed for wanting more and more and more, and you'll never get satisfied if that's what your driving factor is. You need to understand that if you're a programmer, you make a lot of money, and obviously it's companies that pay more than others, right? Like everyone always says Fang pays a lot of money, and they do. People want to get money. Like programmers make a shit ton. Okay, what else? Fang, Manga, I don't know what it is. Manga pay a shit ton, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I actually got messaged on one of the previous rants. It's like, hey man, why do you have a problem with people making money? And I'm just like, I don't have a problem with people making money. I actually implore people to go and chase the money because it makes life easier to live, right? Like you like money is great. But as a programmer, you need to understand that you're entering a realm where you are going to be making a lot more money than anyone around you who isn't a programmer. Next group of people that we want to talk to are the people who want to build things like mobile or web apps. So these are people who are driven to, you know, more entrepreneurial. Is that how you spell it? Okay, entrepreneurial mindsets of building things themselves, right? So these are people who want to just build and create things right away, build their own product, build their own startup, or whatever you know, whatever you want to classify it as. And the last group are people who are looking for the next technological wave. This was a hard one for me to even like conceptualize, but let me give you an example. These are people who last year were looking to be ML AI data scientists, right? Because that was the big boom. Right? Previous years, previous trends. We can put a little, right? Definitely AI, machine learning, big data, machine learning, big data, etc. That was definitely the big trend like a couple years ago. I'm going to write down all of your questions here, questions to discuss, right? I'm gonna write down all these questions here, and we're gonna go through them as we're gonna do in this conversation. Rust for a beginner. I actually want to implore you to watch my YouTube video that I just released yesterday. That's a new one, baby. I appreciate that. Pow it, man. Path for MLE. I saw that TensorFlow as a certification. I'm planning. Is it worth it? I'll make it specifically to programming, okay? Because this is a programming conversation. So we're gonna leave it to what are the best programming tools, paths, things that you could do to kind of go onto that path of becoming MLE. What is an easy language to learn? Easy language to learn. What programming career should I go to? Should I follow? What programming language pays the most? I would like to know that. If I'm a beginner and all I care about is making the most amount of money, I want to know what program language will pay the most. Cade, welcome in. Give me that, pal. I appreciate that raid. If you want to make money, what program language should you use? So here's the thing. In most tech companies, and from what I understand, all of them, because I actually have, I know somebody who's currently applying to different roles at way different companies. Not even all of them are FANG companies. But he's telling me that like the hiring process is almost the same for all of them. So in most tech companies, there's a technical portion. There's a technical portion in the interview. Okay, so in this technical portion interview is typically referred to as leak code interviewing. Every Sunday I do a stream called Engineering Talks, where it's a very, no code-esque podcast style stream where we talk about concepts in engineering. Last week we spoke about how to prepare for the FANG interview, for leak code style interviews. And today we're talking about the top programming languages in 2022. If you want to see the previous week's video, I save them in my VODs, and I also released a YouTube video talking about what I'm talking about today, last night. To enter these big companies that pay a lot, you're going to have to go through this leak code. It's inevitable. So start preparing whatever way you can right now. Now, if you're someone green, someone fresh, someone junior in terms of your programming experience, you're not too gnarly one programming language, right? Like, for example, if you're a person who spent 5 years working in C++, then what I'm about to say does not apply to you. Or if you're a person who's worked with JavaScript for 8 years, this is not going to apply to you. But if you're someone who's just kind of picking it up, you're in school, you're kind of just doing assignments, what you want to do, and my recommendation here is you want a language that is easy to use to solve these problems. Makes sense, right? Obviously, when you're solving these leak code problems, the last thing you kind of want to think about is the syntax of your code. It is an important aspect, but I think your mind is more set on actually solving it, making sure it runs, and making sure that you're so comfortable with the programming language that you can really express your thought process in compiling code. And for that, my first recommendation for this category of people is Python. Okay, so the first language I recommend is Python. Why Python, right? Why Python? Okay, and again, I said all this. I've talked about this in my YouTube video that I posted yesterday. So if you haven't got a chance to watch that, check it out. !YT. But Python is, let's just say it, man. And I've used Python for many years. Well, 2, and I still use Python. Python is easy, okay? Python is easy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very easy language to read. It's a very easy language to understand, and it's a very easy language to use, okay? Python is easy, especially for a new person. If you're a complete beginner and you've never even seen code, but you're interested in, I would recommend Python. Python is, in my opinion, the best beginner language. The best beginner language. Okay? And this is my opinion, of course, but there's so many good reasons that make Python so easy for someone new. It's so good because it's like very easily, maybe this is a wrong word, but digestible. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're someone who's never seen any code in your life and you see a Python script, you can make sense of it because it's almost like English. It's like structured English. The last thing you want to do in a technical interview is not be able to solve your own problems in terms of the syntax, debugging your own code, and all of that. You want to focus on literally the problem they give you and solving it in the amount of time, communicating it, and doing it correctly. The last thing you want to worry about is the programming language you're choosing correct for this job, right? Syntax is easy to understand. Okay. Another thing that makes Python so good, right? Python has a lot of things that, a lot of tooling that come with it. Okay. And I'm gonna do one more thing. Python has a massive community, and this is actually very important for a new beginner or a person just starting to program. The reason why this point here is probably one of the most important ones, more important than it just being easy, is when you're learning how to program, you're by yourself, you're at your desk, you're putting in X amount of hours a week, a day, and you're gonna see errors, right? If you write code, you've seen errors, right? That's part of the job. You see things you get stuck on. With Python and JavaScript, to be honest, when you Google your specific problem, because of the massive adoption and massive community of Python, you will more than likely see your error already solved. Or at the very, very least, if you're using some obscure new technology, there's going to be a GitHub issues discussion about it, right? So what this does is it provides resources for you to debug, learn, solve. Okay, and I don't want to gloss over that point because it's incredibly important. For a beginner, this is key. For a beginner, this is key, right? If you're a new beginner and you're starting a language that has no adoption and it's very hard to get any answers to your questions, like that was just very stressful, and that could actually put you off programming. You know what I mean? Like if you're someone new programming, the last thing you want to do is follow an obscure error for 7 hours and not get anywhere. You'll burn yourself out, you feel pretty bad, and you probably don't want to program again. But with Python, with JavaScript, with all these like mainstream, very easily picked up languages, there's so many creators out there talking about them. Compact and explicit syntax is great for leak code. It's great for LC. One thing I do want to say also about Python, and this is a point that was I think I didn't do a good job of explaining it in the video, so I want to do a better job here on this stream. And this goes to being super similar to English. It's practically a pseudo language whiteboard language. All right, it's a practical pseudo language whiteboard language. So this is actually a very good point, because in an interview, just someone that believes support is done via chat. So this is, and Mutru, a shout out Mutru. I don't even think I gave her a shout out, but she's great person. When you're in an interview process, I can only speak from my perspective, right? One thing is, during an interview, I get really nervous, right? And like typically, I'm not a very nervous guy. I don't really get anxiety. I'm a very like, you know, I can handle situations quite well, right? I think it's a part of my attitude is like a really don't give a shit attitude. But when it comes to an interview, especially the technical interview, I shit the bed in my nerves. It's something that I gotta work on. I get very anxious. I feel very nervous. I get like the feeling in my stomach, and all of that, it jumbles my brain. I don't think as clearly, and I can't demonstrate my skills as efficiently in that scenario. But that's just how I am. Some people are like, this is a breeze, I'm gonna kill it, whatever. So for me, using Python, it has a option here that really, not an option, but it gives you something that really makes it easier when in that situation. So if you're in an interview and you get tasked with a problem that's a little bit tricky and you're kind of struggling, fumbling the ball, you know, you're putting the pieces together, but maybe it's a bit slower, maybe you have to solve a bug, blah blah blah. Sometimes it's really good that Python is like a whiteboard language, because you really can express your thinking to the interviewer very, very, you know, efficiently. Because it's like English, you know, your for loops, your if loops, any cases, switches, whatever. It's very easy, just like reading English. So you can explain it to your interviewer much more smoother than any more lower level languages. And I think that's something that is glossed over when talking about Python. Because yeah, we know it's easy to read, we know it's an easy language to pick up, but I think in a practical setting, it helps in terms of expressing your thoughts to your interviewer. Interviews feel belittling? Yeah, they do, man. I've been there. My first Google interview was pretty bad. I felt very belittled, but my interview was professional, very awesome. So it was just like my performance that really belittled me. But that's something you gotta work through. You're not at your best at interviewing, but it helps to express your thoughts to your interviewer, which helped. And this is always helpful. You may not get the job, right? Like I'm not gonna say the fact that all because you're a great communicator and you can talk to your interviewer during the process, but your code doesn't compile, that you're gonna get the job. You know, you might get points for explaining it better, but at the end of the day, during a technical interview, you're going to have to solve the technical portion, right? I'm just saying it helps and it adds points if you can express your thoughts more clearly. And I think Python provides that versus other languages because of the pressure and time constraints. Yes, absolutely. Which is why I also recommended for people preparing in FANG interviews last week to start doing the LeetCode weekly challenges, because it's time-based. It's pressure-based, but it's not as pressure-based as an interview. So if you want to get some jitters out, do the LeetCode weekly challenges. If you're a new person and you want to focus on money, I would say Python. Okay, I recommend Python just because it's super easy for the interviewing process. I will say though, there is another language that can fall into this category very easily, which is JavaScript. Spoilers. But I think JavaScript is better for another group of people. So we're gonna move on from, if you want to make money, what programming languages? If you want to build things, if you want to build things yourself, right? What programming language? It is JavaScript, TypeScript. Super easy. I'm gonna refer to it as JavaScript from now on. I recommend TypeScript. I think a lot of people recommend TypeScript. But if you're a noob, if you're a beginner, I probably would just resort to JavaScript because it's not strictly typed, right? TypeScript is just strictly typed JavaScript, which is great once you understand and get used to strictly typing. I'm still very bad at it, so I still use tsignore, and sometimes I use any, even though like I really made an effort not to use the type any anymore, but totally I guess acceptable if you do sometimes. So why JavaScript? Very easy. A bunch of similar reasons as Python. Incredibly adopted, massive communities. And by the way, I said this in my YouTube video because I see this on Twitter all the time. People will make fun of people using JavaScript. I never understood that, right? Like, I get it, like there's some things about JavaScript that, you know, aren't ideal, like the builds might be a little large, yeah, blah blah blah, but like, come on, like it's not, JavaScript is phenomenal, it's great. I always wish to get better at JavaScript. I just can't allocate the time to it, but no, I definitely don't think you guys do it from front end and back end. Exactly. Oh, you're spoiling, man. You're spoiling. Are you spoiling? Don't be spoiling. Okay, so massive communities. So we already talked about this, so let's not focus on it. But JavaScript, just like Python, massive communities. Okay. No, I'm kidding, man. It's all good. Massive communities, which makes it easy to debug. It makes it easy to find your solutions. It makes it easy to learn. Right? As a beginner, the bigger community makes it easier to learn. Okay, and like again, that's a huge thing to do, right? The incredible adoptions it's the same thing as massive communities, right? You get to see different problems, different ways of implementing JavaScript, different ways of using the frameworks in your setting, which is great. Okay, now another thing about JavaScript is the, how would I say this? The vast, I guess I would call them frameworks, maybe libraries, right? And I want to specify this point on the JavaScript side and not the Python side for one reason. JavaScript has a very interesting kind of ecosystem, for lack of a better word, where the framework you're using on top of JavaScript almost feels like it's like you're obviously still using JavaScript or TypeScript, but the framework you're using almost like replace the fact that you're using JavaScript. And what do I mean by that? So let's say, for example, I'm using React, right? When I use React, it feels like I'm using, like, the first thing in my head is I use React and not JavaScript, right? That's what I mean. Like, that's the power of this framework, right? And same with Vue or Svelte. It's like when you're using Vue or Svelte, it almost feels like you're using them, and then the second thought is it's actually JavaScript under the hood. You know what I mean? That's how I personally feel. And I think those libraries and frameworks actually help people, because everyone's different. Everyone has different tastes. Everyone has different personalities. Everyone has different things that they want to see in their or use. So some people may really not like React, and that's fine. They may hate React, but then they can see Vue and be like, oh wait, I actually really like Vue, or Angular, and be like, oh, I actually really like this. It's all obviously under the JavaScript, ecosystem, but it's different. It's very different, and that could be that like change in attraction from getting a person to dedicate the next, X years of their life to programming versus turning them off and making them do something they don't want to do anymore. So I think it's actually powerful. I think it's something worth bringing up, worth talking about. So another really cool thing about JavaScript, powerful. What does that mean? What does powerful mean? Okay, JavaScript is one of the only languages where you can write front end and back end. Node.js, the runtime library, Node.js for JavaScript. It's incredibly, like, you can make a full stack application from start to finish. You can make a full stack application from start to finish, all using JS. Awesome. JavaScript is very powerful in the sense that you could do an entire front end and write the back end of your app, all while still using JavaScript. Like, if you guys remember Snack Chat, one of the apps I made live on stream, I actually did the front end obviously in JavaScript, and then the back end was in Node.js. I was awful at Node, and that code is terrible, but I made it work, right? So I think that's what adds a lot of really good flexibility and a very good, tool to understand that JavaScript provides, right? Because sometimes once you get used to a language, you understand that maybe you don't like front end, or maybe you like back end more, or vice versa. Like, personally, if you guys remember way back when I first started streaming, I was streaming React. I was streaming solely JavaScript, right? And those streams are me learning it and using it, right? And then after that time, I realized that I just like I like back-end programming more. I like back-end engineering more than front-end engineering, just personally. And so that's why my career path is more so as a back-end engineer versus continuing that front-end engineer route. Nothing wrong with either or, but I just found myself liking back-end more. And so once you get to that point where you can really distinguish what kind of engineering you want to dedicate yourself to, JavaScript allows you to pick front end or back end while still using JavaScript, which is great. I think that's awesome. The way we're structuring this video is we're talking about the top programming languages, and we have this little trend graph here, and we also have the top languages for who, and we're catering it to beginners, people who want to get paid, and people want to build things, and then people who want to get on the next wave of technology. Staff monkas. Oh yeah, I work for Twitch. I work for Twitch. JavaScript also mobile support, right? We have React Native, right? We have so many different. JavaScript is one of those tools that exists and was adopted by so many people, and so it's such a great language. And so many people have messaged me and be like, oh, like, there's too many web dev jobs, or like, there's too many people who want JavaScript engineers. That's a good thing. Like, that's a good thing, right? If there's a lot of people that want hire JavaScript engineers, okay, then like, you go be a JavaScript engineer. It's all good that there's a lot of jobs for front-end engineers and JavaScript engineers, There's a reason for that. It's because JavaScript runs on like so much stuff. We're gonna move into our last bin of people here, which is the people who are looking for the next technological wave. Let's grab this. So, if you're a person who wants to make a lot of money, what is a programming language I recommend? I recommend Python. Simply because of the technical interview that these big companies have to make you go through. And I think the language, if you don't have a lot of experience, is Python because of all these reasons. If you're more of an entrepreneurial person and you want to build your own thing, start building your own startups, start exploring, building a mobile app or web app, I recommend JavaScript/TypeScript. Because of all the reasons we mentioned here, but mostly because you could do end-to-end with JavaScript, which I think is incredibly powerful. Hey, I gotta ask you guys for something, Please, everyone here, can you guys hit up the Discord? Can you guys join the Discord, please? I want to get my Discord up to 1,000 members. Can we fuck with that? Can we fuck with that? 1,000 members. That's gonna be unbelievable. We have a long way to go, but can you guys help me get there? Can we get one of the craziest Discord communities to 1,000? Let me tell you, if we do that, one hell of a giveaway will happen. Once we get 1,000 Discord members, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna do the craziest giveaway software and game development has ever seen. People who are looking for the next technological wave. So this is a cool category. This is a pretty unique group of people, okay? Because I would argue everyone always wants to know what the newest thing is, right? But for example, these people want to get ahead of what's coming. All right, they want to get ahead of what's coming, and let's go refer back to our trend chart here. Our trend chart is perfect to explain this. From my understanding and the way I have processed these languages, the earlier adopters, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is Go, Rust, Kotlin, right? I think the market owners right now are JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, and Node. And I think some of the languages that are seeing the more descend are going to be Java, C, and the PHP. You still have to know C for most Rust use cases, since almost all libraries are written in them. Exactly. Yeah. It's still good to know, right? It's still good to know. So these people want to get ahead of what's coming. Technology moves so fast. There's always new buzzwords. There's always new buzzwords, and there's always new buzzwords, right? So like in 2022, right? Roughly, we'll put a little squiggly. In 2022, what was that buzzword, right? What was that buzzword in 2022? Well, I think, in my opinion, it was data science, right? It was machine learning, and it was AI. Everyone in 2022 was talking about these three topics. Do you guys remember that? Big data. Big data. This is massive in 2020. Everyone to be a data scientist. Everyone to learn how to make AI and machine learning and, you know, all this stuff. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. This is, if you're in this engineering suite, this is still high demand jobs. You will still find a lot of people wanting to do this. So this is all the big things, I think, back then. Now there's still a lot of hype, but obviously the hype has died down, right? The hype has definitely died down. You don't really see that angst, that push, that every Twitter open, that every something you open, any social media had AI, machine learning. You don't see that anymore. Okay, but now, and as thank you for everyone, now we know what it is. We know what it is now. We've blockchain, crypto. You open any sort of Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you open your phone, you talk to your auntie, you talk to your boy we haven't seen in 7 years, he's making an NFT scheme, you talk to all of them. Blockchain, crypto, that's the new buzz. This is where it is. This is what everyone now is focusing on. This is what these people, the people who are looking for the next technological wave, they're looking at this. They're looking at people who make YouTube videos with 700 views, how to deploy shit on the blockchain, okay? They are reading crypto and Medium articles, how to make your own crypto chain and deploy it on the blockchain and get people to buy it. They're looking at Uniswap. They're looking at how to send money to Ethereum. They are doing this. This is the now. This is the current buzz, all right? If you're a person, I also recommend, actually, I should rate this. I think someone said this. Web 3.0. All right. So then, this becomes the people we're targeting here are the people who want to learn Web 3.0. People who want to learn 3.0. Web 3.0. Okay. So, what do you recommend? What do you tell people? Like, is it Python? Is it JavaScript? Is it Go? No, it's not. It's none of those, actually. The way the blockchain works and how it's like superly coupled with a programming language is very much so related to deployment of the contracts on the blockchain. And different blockchains, different main nets, different layer ones have different methods of having a contract written and deployed, right? So the two languages I recommend in this, Solidity, and I'm going to recommend two, and I wrote about this in my, I talked about this in my YouTube video. Solidity plus, you guys are gonna shit your bed right now, Rust. I recommend Solidity and Rust. if you want to start learning blockchain technology, if you want to start learning how to deploy your own contract, if you want to start working with Ethereum, if you want to start working with Solana, if you want to start working with Avalanche, if you want to start working with Near Protocol, it's Solidity and Rust. Actually, it's more Rust than Solidity. Solidity, very similar to JavaScript. Very similar to JavaScript. Solidity is very similar to JavaScript. In my opinion, the way I look at Solidity, it's like if JavaScript met Go and they had a baby. That's how I see Solidity. It's like strict typing. It looks super similar to JavaScript. That's how I see it. It's JavaScript plus got a baby. Solidity is the main language used in Ethereum contracts. All right. So if you just saw the last series I just wrapped up on my streaming, we created and deployed an NFT collection from scratch, from start to finish. The VODs are up. Super cool. We literally finished it yesterday. What a cool stream, guys. Thank you guys for helping me out watching that. That was so fun to do. It's crazy. But we wrote our contract in Solidity. If you want to make an NFT on Ethereum, you're going to write it in Solidity. If you want to make your contract in Matic, you're going to be writing it in Solidity. All of that is written in Solidity. I think it's super easy to read, easy to understand, and it has decent content. It has decent amount of content to learn. Okay, now why do I recommend Rust, and how is it possible to recommend Rust to beginners? So here's the thing. Let's just start off. Rust is a hard language. Okay, we all know this. Rust is a hard language to learn. It's not easy. It's not like a Python. It's definitely not like a JavaScript, and it's more advanced than Go. It is a hard language to learn. Okay, that's the way it is. It's a lower level language. But once you get good at Rust, it's one of those languages that you can really master your domain and the way you deploy and create applications. But why is Rust relevant in Web3, right? Like, why would I recommend Rust in this category of Web3 development, blockchain development, and not in the other categories? Well, I think the main reason is if you are interested in what the next or what the current boom is in technology, it's not going to be easy, right? In machine learning and AI back like 2 years ago, using TensorFlow was a little bit more complicated, right? As is creating contracts now. Like in Ethereum and Solidity, it's a little bit easier, but in Rust, they are a bit harder. So Rust is a hard language to learn, but Rust is used in Solana. It's used in Near. It's used in Avalanche. It's used in a lot. It's used in a lot of blockchains. Okay. And this simple reason here is why, you know, I'd recommend Rust. It's because it's used by a lot of cryptos that we use and a lot of things that we interact with. Another thing about Rust is extremely, how do you spell that? Extremely smart engineering community. Okay, once you get accepted into the Rust community, once you're able to write Rust, the things that you will learn are going to be advanced level concepts, right? Everyone join a Discord to get all the notifications for all the engineering talk I'm gonna do in the future. It's every Sunday, so mark on your calendar. Tell your wife you can't hang out with her on Sundays. Tell your dog they're gonna have to wait, because Sundays is engineering talk days with your boy Melkey Dev. We're gonna talk about stuff that we want to know about. We're gonna talk about stuff that no one else talks about, because that's what we do here. Let's recap. What did I say here? So we created this trend graph, okay? We talked about the best programming languages for who. Obviously, this is all for beginners, but we specifically cater to people who want to make money, people who want to build things, and people who are looking for the next technological wave. So the first category is people want to make a lot of money. Now, we prefix this by saying if you are in the programming engineering industry, you are going to be making a lot of money, right? But the companies that pay the most are typically the FANG, manga companies / crypto, and other big fintech companies. But for all of those, they have a high level of similarity in their hiring process, where you have to go through this technical interview. That technical interview is related to what's called leak code interview style questions, where they're going to give you a problem and you have to solve it. If you don't know what leak code is and you're in this category, I highly recommend you stop watching me right now. Go leetcode.com, make an account, and start practicing, because the earlier you start, the better you are off. And so what programming language did I recommend for that specific task? Well, it's Python. It's easy. I still think it's the best beginner programming language for someone who does not know programming at all. There's a lot of tooling that comes with it. There's a massive community, which makes it easy for you to debug your code. It makes it easier for you to find sources. And for programming in an interview setting, when you have nerves, it's a very simple whiteboard language, because if you get lost in your thought, if something gets too pressure cooked for you, you can explain to your interview and communicate it much better than some other languages. Do they usually force you to do an external language? Nope. You typically are given the choice to what language you want to do, and thankfully for me, I actually always ask for any of them as well. So I say, hey, I want to do my interview in Python, and also I use Vim bindings, and they always say, yep, we have Vim bindings, don't worry about that. The second group of categories, for the people who want to build stuff, these are people who are a little bit more entrepreneurial, and they want to build their own website, they want to build their own application, get their next billion-dollar idea. What's the language I recommend for these group of people? Obviously, JavaScript/TypeScript. We're going to refer to it as JavaScript because TypeScript is just JavaScript with stricter typing. Some people, if you're a beginner, you may not want to kind of dive into that, but I definitely recommend TypeScript over JavaScript. Why JavaScript? Everything I just said in Python, minus maybe the the way it's read and the way whiteboarding. I think JavaScript is a little bit more intricate in the way it's written, right? Like the for loops, I think those are a little bit like, you could read them like, what is that? What does that mean? Oh, okay, it means that. Whereas Python, your for loops are like, oh, okay, I understand that, like right off the mat. We always use React.js actually, but I'm happy. Anyone in chat, please answer Thunderblaze or answer in the Discord. So why JavaScript? Incredibly adopted. More than likely, you have used and interacted with JavaScript. If you're watching this on Twitch, if you're watching this, you are interacting with JavaScript. Websites, apps, they're made with JavaScript. Massive community, which makes it super easy for you to debug, find the answers to your problems, all that. And as a beginner, the bigger community makes it easier to learn. I think JavaScript also has a very unique feature. It has two very unique features that make it stand out. One is the vast amount of frameworks and library that it has. And I think those really make JavaScript stand out because, like I said earlier, sometimes these frameworks actually blanket cover that you don't really think you're using JavaScript. So what do I mean by that? When I use React, I forget that I'm using JavaScript. Of course I'm using JavaScript under the hood, but I feel like I'm using React first and then JavaScript second, right? And you can make the same argument for Vue, Svelte. And why is that powerful? Why is that good? It's because if you're new and you start off with React, you can say, man, I don't like React. But then you can go into Vue and you can be like, I actually love Vue. So it gives you that little room to discover yourself, discover what you like to work with. And this is the biggest thing I think about JavaScript, the thing that makes it stand out and why it's such a great language. It's a powerful end-to-end full stack language, right? Of course, you can do the same with Python, right? You can do your backend in Python, and you can use tools like Kivy to make your front end and make your app, but that's gonna be crap. That's gonna be doo-doo cakes. You don't even want to do that. If you're gonna do anything on the front end on a web app, use JavaScript, right? Like, let's just come on. But JavaScript has a real time, it has Node.js. Node.js, any kind of framework that you want, you can make it end to end. It's really powerful, really great stuff. And obviously it has React Native for mobile support. Last category, people who are looking for the next technological wave. The people who are pushing it, people want to be and learn stuff now and then use it years ahead and be one of those gurus. We talked about how 2 years ago, that whole boom was related to data science, machine learning, AI, big data. And now it's all about Web3, blockchain, crypto. So we specify and cater this to people who want to learn blockchain and crypto. And the two languages that we recommended are Solidity and Rust, because these are the main languages used to create the contracts to interact with the blockchain. Solidity, it's for Ethereum, which is the biggest layer 1 blockchain, while Rust is used in a lot of other ones, such as Solana, Near Protocol, Avalanche, and a bunch of other ones that I missed. Let's talk about the intermediate people. I want to add one more. I want to give the people here something different than a YouTube video, because all this information I just said, you can watch in a YouTube video. But let's talk about something different, something that YouTube video is not going to cover. And for the people here, the people who took their time to watch me, what about the intermediate people, intermediate developers? Okay, what the hell is an intermediate developer, Melkey? I'll tell you. I think it's someone who's been programmed for a year or two, right? Maybe more closer to a year. They've been using Python, JavaScript, the regular beginner starting out. They're pretty good, right? They can They can figure it out. They know how to debug, blah, 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 right? They're not noobs. They're not beginners. All right. But they're at the point where maybe they want to either start something new, learn a new language, right? Or maybe they're more curious to and ask themselves, is the tool they're using the best for the job, right? If you're using Python and you're not doing any machine learning, any, Airflow, orchestration, and you're clearly just making the backend logic for an app, is Python the best option, right? These are the kind of questions you will start to get as you become more senior. So intermediate developers, and there is, again, this is all my opinion. Like, if I haven't made that clear, this is all my opinion, guys. You guys make your own opinions, argue against me, come up with your own solution. This is just something to get the brain going, get the conversation going. Intermediate developers, what do I recommend? Well, I recommend Golang. I think it's the best language that combines the principles of Python and C. Okay, it's strict typing. There's a little bit more rules. You can't freely create stuff like you do in Python. It's good. I like it a lot. I like Go a lot. I think it's, once you understand how Go works, or how Go, how Go's implemented and what the best patterns are, I think it's incredible. It's such a powerful language. It's super fast. It doesn't lag behind. You can do so much with it. You can make it a server. You can create API endpoint. Like, everything you could do, you could be done in Go. So I think that's really phenomenal. And I think that really makes it stand out as a language. And we have done streams using Go. I think Go is more appropriate than Rust for the vast majority of people. We only recommended Rust for Web3 development. Go is not really a Web3 developed language, and made projects using Go. My biggest thing with Go is Go taught me principles that Python glosses over. As a Python dev, Go introduced me to things that Python spoiled me in. Okay, what is Go used for? Go is used for microservices. Go is used for incredible. Go is also garbage collected like Python, not like C. Yeah. Go is used for creating microservices. You can create full stack applications using Go. Like the backend logic for it. Go is really exceptional when it comes to microservices. Go shines as being used as a microservice, so it could be hosted as an endpoint and can serve different things. Like, if one instance, you can deploy it, create like an API layer using a protobuf or whatever. All right, so you guys want the best resource for learning how to use Go? Whatever, I got you guys. Don't say I don't do anything. Don't say I don't do anything for you. It's let's go further. Advanced patterns for building APIs and web applications in Go. Believe me when I say this. If there's anything that I want you to take away from this, okay, is that this resource is going to be the only resource you need to learn how to use Go. And that's it. This is the one-stop shop. It's one thing. You get it. You use it. You no longer need to be Googling, YouTubing, Medium, how to do stuff in Go. This will teach you everything. Of course, you're going to still be using Stack Overflow, Googling, maybe different concepts. But if you're just starting out in Go, this is it, baby. This is it. This is how you build an application. Maybe there's Go by example. That's also a great one. But this is it. This is it. I cannot say enough good things about this textbook. We use it on stream. It taught me about stateless token and auth development. It taught me about different concepts of making my own. Is it noob friendly? I would say it's not too noob friendly. Okay. It does go into Go concurrency patterns. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Let's look at it. Let's look. Structure and organization, responses, SQL migrations, database operations. It does quite a bit of advanced CRUD. It does quite a bit of advanced searching, rate limiting, visual shutdowns, managing background tasks, SMTP servers, authentication, permission-based authorization, managing cores, metrics, building, deployment, versioning. I mean, sir. Go and buy this. Go and support this author. Incredible stuff. And it has my seal and stamp of approval. Real stuff instead of LeetCode problems. Yes. This is if you're, this is if you master LeetCode, you're not going the LeetCode route. What distro of Linux do you use? I keep it close. I use Ubuntu 20.04. That's what I use. And I recommend it. If you want to go into a Linux distribution, definitely recommend using Ubuntu. Direct question, like, what's up? Could you talk about the experience of software releasing at Twitch? I saw the internal Go Mantra project, and that seems super handy. Yeah. It's funny that you talk about Mantra. I'm not. I am part of. I contribute a little bit to Mantra. I work closely with Mantra. It's cool, really cool. Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit. I probably can't get into the details. Obviously, code has been leaked. So it's all there since, whenever the leak was. I can talk about the concepts holistically in our process at like a more general perspective, but I probably won't be looking into things on a deeper level just because I don't think I can talk about it. Do you have a minimum bar you want to be at to be comfortable when interviewing? I'm doing some daily lead coding just to keep skills sharp, but I wonder how good you have to be to land these jobs reliably. I mean, yeah, you always want to. That's why when you do LeetCode for the first time, it's always good to put a lot of time in learning the concepts of LeetCode. Just so when you can go back, you don't have to relearn the simple stuff. You already know how certain things are how they work and how they're set up. What do you mean with LeetCode interviewing? To learn about problem solving? What do you mean with LeetCode? Oh, so what I mean is typically when you get interviewed by programming or a technology company, you have to go through a technical interview where they're gonna just ask you a LeetCode problem. Now, of course, this is not all companies. Some are, some aren't doing this, but the vast majority that I've heard, that I've experienced, do in fact force you or ask you to do a LeetCode style problem. Can you get into Fang just by getting recommended? No, you definitely. I got dude, Mewtrue recommended me to a job, and I just have to go through the exact same interview process. But I also applied to Google, and I got a interview, and I didn't get any referral. So it really depends. It's awesome that you got hired by Twitch early after learning. I'm going on 8-9 years, and my work history has been a checkboard of dysfunction. I got, thank you for that comment, man. Obviously some people do it fast. I definitely am proud. Look, I won't lie. I definitely am proud that, I went from self-taught learning like how to do a Python hello world and reading data from CSV to going at Twitch in like 2 years. But some people do it faster, and I am proud of that work at it, but it took a lot of time, man. I sacrificed a lot. I used to be like a very high level wrestler and jiu-jitsu practitioner. I gave all that up and dedicated all to programming. I gave up time to hang out with my friends. I gave up time to go do events, didn't go on vacation, whatever. I don't need to tell you guys the story of the sad boo-hoo story. Right? I'm just saying I gave up portions of my life that I had before to pursue and really, dedicate my life to programming. And I'm very happy that I can finally see the fruits of my labor. Hello, what's your main programming language and what do you do? My main one is probably gonna be Python or Go, and what I work is infrastructure as code. So I do deployments, I do infrastructure for our machine learning teams. What is a typical problem or project that you would do in a day or during the week? I don't get daily, none of my projects are do this in a day. The only daily activities I have are if something like if there's an alarm failure in our stack or an infrastructure, something broke, I can go debug that. If we have a security issue with one of our technologies, I can go resolve that. But all my projects take weeks to months to implement. So I take a project and I just split up into tasks and I do them. So are you building features? I'm not necessarily building features. I work on one thing that I do. That's just part of I contribute to other libraries I use internally at Twitch. So I just contribute. If I use something for my project and I see I can contribute, while I'm working on my main project, I can make a PR, be like, hey, we should do this instead, So I contribute to other tech used in Twitch, but no, I don't really work on features. I work on services. I make services from ground up. You must be a 5-head if you started programming in 2019 and work as a I'm not a 5-head, dude. I'm definitely not a smart person. I would probably actually truthfully say I'm a little bit dumber than your average person. I just have a really, I guess, cursed quality where I don't I don't give up, which is super cheesy to say. Like, I just keep going. No matter how many times people like make fun of me, no matter how many times I fail, no matter all the times I failed in leak code. If you guys saw me streaming late last year, I was doing leak code live on stream and I couldn't get any single questions right. But I just kept doing it, man. Like, and bare people talk mad shit about me. People in this chat talk mad shit about me all the time, dude. Because I'm a weak engineer or whatever. But dude, like, you just gotta keep going, man. If you want it, if you want something, just keep going. You know, and ignore all the bullies. Respect the hustle. Yeah, always gotta hustle, man. Always grind. The people who say they're naturally smart at things, dude, whatever. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, you know? Always live and die by that. A lot of Twitch is written Go, right? Yeah. A lot of Twitch is written Go. A lot of Twitch was written with Ruby on Rails, but we just deprecated all of that. Does Twitch prefer JavaScript, TypeScript? TypeScript. All TypeScript. All TypeScript. As far as I know. I can't think of... I obviously don't know all the code on Twitch. That would be kind of crazy from my short amount of time that I've been there. But I've only seen TypeScript. So I'm thinking of doing web dev with Python. Should I go with Django or Flask? That's a good question. I would say you're doing web dev in Python. Like, if you want to do backend, like, I'd recommend running your backend for your web dev using Flask. Yeah, I recommend Flask. I've used Flask with CodePal. But if you want to make like actual like stuff in the browser, don't use Python. How much do you make with Python? Ooh, yo, great question. Look at this. I got sources. I got citations for you guys. Because a lot of people call me out for stuff, which is completely fine. Call me out. You have. If I'm saying something that's ridiculous, call me out. But bro, that's what are you fucking talking about? That's true. So in the US, if you're in Python, you're probably, according to the average salary of just shy of 20,000 responders, you're gonna be probably making around $61,465. How about TypeScript? TypeScript 60,000, according to, you know, 16,000. No solidity to be seen, not yet. Yeah, Closure making a crap ton. Go about 76,000. Rust about 76,000. There we go. So yeah, we got, and is this yeah, so we got Closure number 1. So we already went through this. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, let's just take a break, everyone. Look at this, see what you guys think. These are the top paying salaries, top paying languages, and what their average salary is according to Stack Overflow's survey. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, so many people use Stack Overflow, so I think it's a pretty decent indicator. It's not the best, of course. It's pretty decent though. What is your role at Twitch, by the way? My role at Twitch, thank you for asking. I am a infrastructure machine learning engineer. What does that mean? Am I making the neural networks? No. In my last job, when I was a machine learning lead, I actually created neural networks. Here at Twitch, my role is infrastructure as code. So I create tooling, I create services that are in charge of our infrastructure and deployment process here at Twitch. And I work with the machine learning team. So all this stuff and all the services that I create are for our data scientists to use. It's done in Python and Go and TypeScript. Those are the 3 languages I use all the time. TypeScript, Go, and Python. And I do 0 front end. None of the things I ever work on you will ever see in your life. And that's a good thing. If you see my work, then that's a bad thing. If you don't know my work, it's great. How'd you pick up a lead position so quickly in your career? In my domain expertise, I'm battling against people who have decades of experience. Oh, my lead position, when I got it, I was thrown in the wolves. It was for a company that was starting up, and they were doing something that they needed a machine learning engineer. Prior to me, they had hired someone, and for 3 months he couldn't do the tasks. So they hired me, and they're like, we don't even know if it's gonna work out, but F it, get in here. So I did. I busted my ass off. I literally busted my ass off for them, and I was able to deploy them a transformer neural network, which is it's a you know, word-based machine learning model for intent detection in words. That's what I did. I deployed it in production. I trained it myself. I did all the pipelines, cleaning pipeline, training pipeline, everything. It's a batch model, so it's not a real-time inference model. And it worked. It worked really, really well, actually. It increased a lot of our sales, and that was one of the points that I got the company acquired. So I had a really good kind of catapult during the acquisition, because they acquired the company, and one of the main things, selling points, was our neural network kind of back-end brain, if you will. And that's at that point, everyone knew I was the lead because I was the only one working on it. So I just took it, man. They offered me the role. It was a good amount of money. I was fresh out of my master's, and I said, fuck it, like, let's do this, you know, let's rock and roll. Sometimes you gotta take shit, dude. Even when I was definitely underprepared, I did a lot of mistakes there. Dude. I broke production like a lot of times at that company. A lot of times. I also got into like yelling arguments with my CTO where we were yelling at each other. Like he would come like, okay, you're a fucking idiot, and I would yell back at him. You know, it was like wars, but it was wars because we were both passionate about the work and like we knew what we were going to do. We knew what we were doing is right. So that's the acquisition went well, and you know, it got acquired by a Fortune 500 company, which is bank in the bank. Any thoughts on Julia? Julia is a great language for like the low-level statistical probabilities and just like things like that. I think Julia is awesome. What about Java? Still waiting. I am not the best with Java. I don't recommend Java. That's what I would say. I don't recommend Java. But again, take it with a grain of salt. What about developers that know how to code in multiple languages but don't know how to structure big projects? How to engineer a good, robust, scalable code base with proper abstractions? That I'm gonna tell you something. What's up, baby? We're gonna save that for our next engineering talks video. This engineering talk is strictly for programming languages, but I love that. If you guys have any suggestions, by the way, for our next engineering talks episode, please type them in the Discord, put them in the suggestions channel. I need more ideas. I love these streams. They're amazing. I love interacting with you guys and sharing my thoughts and getting corrected on stuff that I say. So if you guys have any topics, please let me know. Let's get this thing going. All right, guys. Let's throw our hands in the air like we just don't care, because we're going to end the stream here. I thought this was a very good stream. Did you guys like it? Did you guys like this stream? Hope you guys did. I gave you guys some good resources. We had some good talks. All these notes are going to be in the Discord, of course. If you haven't already, join the Discord. I've been saying it, join the Discord. That's where these notes are going to be posted. That's where we do everything. We have anime nights. We have algo nights. We do a lot of stuff in our Discord. Super active. It's not like a regular Discord where you join and forget about it. We're very active people there. Shout out to all the people that make that incredible. Follow me on YouTube. Watch a YouTube video if you haven't already. And go join the VOD gang. If you want to see all these VODs, that's where we post them. End of the day. Don't even worry about it. You guys are phenomenal. You guys are amazing. Any questions you may have, reach out to me anyway. Twitter, Discord, YouTube, OnlyFans, whatever you gotta do, reach out to me. Let's start a conversation. I love you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Next Sunday, you guys book this date. Put it on your calendar. Every Sunday is engineering talks, okay? And that's where we're gonna be doing it. So bring your chips, bring your coffee, bring your thermos, bring a good attitude, bring your questions, because every Sunday, baby, I'm gonna see you. And if you're not there, that's an issue. I love you guys. Peace out. Melk out. Bang. Don't forget it. Let's go.